Greetings and welcome to Studio 125 Multimedia Complex, where our mission is to provide a safe, positive platform for the community to share their life journey. I am your host, Natasha Janelle. I want to welcome our guest today, Natasha Ickes Sassman. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so excited to be here with you. I was really looking forward to this and I'm ready.
Awesome. Gratitude for showing up today. You look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. As do you. We are lock sisters. I love it.
Yes, gratitude. So today we are here just to talk to you about your journey. You're originally from Oakland, California.
Yeah, born and raised in the Bay Area. So I grew up, my parents split up when I was super young. So I grew up in both Berkeley and Oakland, which are like side by side little twin cities. And yeah, I love it here. I love to travel, but it's nothing like home.
Awesome. So you were raised by your father.
I was. So I did see my mom, but it was more sporadic, maybe a couple weekends out the month here and there. My mom lived primarily in motels, so the living arrangement wasn't consistent. And so I was primarily raised by my dad. And then my maternal grandmother, how grandmas do, and she had granny from the South, born and raised in New Orleans. And so she really made sure that she started taking me in and making sure I got to know that side of the family as well.
So what was it like growing up being raised by your father?
You know, it was beautiful and it was difficult. My dad and I are very similar, super energetic, just like minds. So we got along in a lot of ways. We had a lot of fun when I was growing up. But it was also hard because I had a lot of friends that were raised primarily by their moms, right? And so they struggled with different things, not having their fathers in their life full time. For me, I guess I had some of those same struggles, but I also used to always think, how bad do you have to be for your own mom not to want you? You were just taught in society, it's kind of an inherent thing, and not everybody has that, but an inherent thing for a mother to just want their child and to be there and to make lunches and rub your back and tell you stories and all that type of stuff. And I struggled so much with my own self identity, sense of self worth, and just being able to love myself by not having that mom that was fully present in my life.
Um, you had something that went on with you at
Yeah.
9. Want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah. So I'm a cancer, right? We're super emotional. Just I was always a really sensitive kid. I'm still a sensitive adult. And so growing up again, I struggled with those issues just from not having my mom around, struggling with my own self-identity, sense of self-worth, also being biracial. My father is white, my mom is black. I've been raised, I always say I identify both as a Black woman and as a biracial woman, but not as a white woman. And the reason for that is because how the world sees me and therefore my experiences as I go out into the world. And
Right.
so there was also that sense of confusion being raised in a white household. It was just different for me. So by the time I turned 9, I was really struggling with all of that and not knowing how to put words to my emotions, not knowing how to process my emotions. And one day I just felt like, I don't want to be here anymore. And so
Mhm.
I went into the kitchen and I grabbed this big old butcher knife. And I remember pressing it to my wrist. And I was thinking, like, I don't even know if the words went through my head that I'm going to kill myself, but I know that was the intention.
Right.
And as I pressed it down, it hurt. And I was like, ooh, yeah, no. But I remember being terrified because it just happened so quick. Like it wasn't something I thought about for weeks or months. I just had this moment of, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of crying, and I'm going to end this. And my dad worked downstairs from our home. We lived above a little grocery store. And so
Mhm.
I went downstairs and I talked to him and told him what happened because I was scared. I said, wow, that could have went a lot further than it actually did.
Right. Wow. And now there's things on social media and they're actually teaching kids how to cut themselves and my goodness. To
It's
just
it's horrible.
it is, I agree, I agree, and being 9 years old and just really thinking that you don't wanna be here at that time, you know, wow. Eh, so
Touching briefly just on what you said about the social media,
right,
harder, I think, for kids now for so many reasons. Every mistake is put out for the world to see.
right,
Bullies don't have to be bold enough to say it to your face, they can do it online. And like you said, kids are being taught how to make a permanent decision off a temporary emotion.
right,
And what I found through which I will touch on later, my actual real suicide attempt, but what I found during those moments, when I really wanted to give up, it was never that I actually wanted to die. It was that I couldn't imagine continuing to live life in the pain that I was in, and I didn't see a way out. And I
mm,
think as we get older, we start to be like, okay, there are really hard, really painful moments. And if I just keep pushing one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, if it's that bad in the moment, things will slowly at some point start to get better. But
right,
when you're a kid, you don't have enough life experience to know that yet. So it feels like this is just it.
right. How did that conversation go between you and your dad at that time when you told him about your cutting?
Yeah, I mean, he took it seriously, and he called my mom so that they were always good friends, like they always stayed friends. My mom came around, like I said, when she wanted to, right? So I was always an option, but never a priority, and that was just the reality of it. And so I think that they both, I guess, so long ago, I feel like they both might have taken me to a therapist, but
Mm,
I only went to 1 or 2 sessions, and by then I was back happy and laughing, and they're like, "Oh, it's fine," and they kind of wrote it off. Um, yeah. And so I don't think it ever really he took it serious, but I don't think he knew exactly what to do outside of taking me to a counselor, and it just didn't go any further. What I needed at the time, looking back, what I felt like I needed was
mhm,
for my mom to show up. I wanted that to make a difference. And I don't think I intentionally did it because I didn't even tell my mom, right? He did. So I
mhm,
didn't do it thinking like, oh, I'm going to show her. It just was, I'm in pain. I want to end this. But afterwards, I remember thinking at different times, like, wow, I came this close and nothing has still changed. It's still
right,
not enough for you to show up consistently. It's still not enough for you to answer your phone when I call you. And that was hurtful.
mm. So after the attempt, how was time for you moving forward? Was there still a lot of depression, anxiety, those type things?
I've always been on and off. I go through these periods of being just very joyful and happy, and then I can get a bit down. I'm just, they say depression runs through families, right? So my parents have dealt with it, I believe both. Definitely my dad's side has. I know more about that side. They definitely have. My brothers dealt with it. I've dealt with it. But overall, I was a really high achieving child. I was in AP and honors classes when I got into like high school. I did like the gifted and talented programs. I was doing ice skating and ballet. And so overall, I had a really joyful childhood. I had these little blips here and there. And it wasn't until I became a teenager and then you get these extra rush of emotions, right? And you're just like, how do I handle everything that's going through my head? And it was during that time when things got a lot more difficult. I started trying to self medicate with weed, with marijuana, and then alcohol. And then in my generation, in my area, people were starting to take ecstasy pills,
Mhm,
mollies, or whatever you call them. And so, it's this rush of euphoria and then a huge drop afterwards. And so, as I started diving into these things, trying to self medicate, my moods got worse, my anger got worse. I
mhm,
moved in with my mom. I lived with my mom twice. So once when I was 3 years old, or like 2 years old, and then again when I was like about 15.
okay.
And so I had left my dad's house. Things weren't going well there. I tried living with my grandma for a year. That didn't work out. I was just angry and I was hurt and I just felt abandoned and I felt like I was going to live life my way on my terms and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And that doesn't work in somebody else's house.
Right,
so and of course I was immature and I was queen victim, right? I took no accountability.
right,
And so I lived with my mom for a year. And that led to this massive blow up. And it was there that I ended up taking this huge bottle of sleeping pills, not a huge bottle, but there was a bottle of sleeping pills, and I took the rest. And that landed me in the emergency room and then in a mental institution. And that was like my final suicide attempt. That was my first real suicide attempt where I just was like, I can't do this anymore.
Wow. Mm. So when you got to the mental institution or hospital, you also had an experience where you met someone there who really just shaped the rest of the suicide attempts. No more.
Yep. Yep. God just, you never, and I don't mean to push my beliefs on anybody, right? Like I don't feel like my way is the only way. So when I say that, I'm referencing what I believe and what I call them, whether you call it the universe, God, Allah, whatever. So I just like to say that. So it's not like imposing, right? Or
Right.
me versus you. But I feel like God drops different people, different places, and different situations in our life to give us an opportunity to change. And He gives us so many of those, whether it's somebody you meet or you may be passing by a sign and you see something that just shifts the way that you're thinking. So for me, this woman I met in the mental institution was one of the many people who changed the course of my life. She was this beautiful young lady. And I just remember looking at her, just thinking, well, she's just gorgeous, right? And I was drawn to her. And we would talk, and she would be like on having a conversation like us, and then literally mid sentence, just drifting off. And I remember trying to figure out like what's going on, and trying to even just get her story of how she ended up there. Long story short, I believe she had driven her car off like some ravine or something, but she attempted to take her own life, did not succeed. However, her accident was so severe that she caused permanent brain damage.
Mm.
And I don't know if she would ever be the same. And that literally terrified me. And I had this moment, and I always say it like this because it just sums it up perfectly how I felt. Like I knew I would never again try to take my own life, and still choosing not to die didn't mean that I knew how to live. So even though I met her and I had this experience and I knew that I would never again try because I didn't want to be stuck in between, I still, when I was released from the mental hospital, I still spent the next few years completely homeless. I at least took enough accountability to realize that I can't live life my own way in your house, right? Those two
Right.
things don't add up. So I was on my own. And I was sleeping. I would catch buses all night long because it's not safe for a young woman to sleep outside. So I would catch the bus, riding it across the span of multiple cities and catch it for hours. Then in the morning, I would go into coffee shops or bookstores and I would just doze off for a few hours. And I did that for a couple of years. And I was still trying, like, I still had a job. I still was trying to go to school. I dropped out of high school first, but I actually enrolled in a JC early. So by the
Mhm.
time I was 16, 17, I was enrolled in a junior college, but I just couldn't get through the semesters because I was hungry, I was tired, I was angry, and I was lost.
Mm. Wow. And you stated that you were sleeping on buses, coffee shops, and j- wow. And it's not you were sleeping on a friend's sofa, like you were actually out in the streets in California.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't have there was a brief time there I would say I was homeless for about 3 or so years. There was a couple months where a friend who had actually kept offering for me to come stay, and I was like, "No," because I didn't wanna be a burden on anyone else. I already felt so discarded. I felt so unwanted in so many different ways, not just from my mom, but other things that had happened. And I was tired of it. I was tired of being somebody else's problem. So I said, I would rather be by myself and figure it out than be a burden on you. And so I did have a brief time where I stayed with a friend for maybe a few months, but 90% of that time, I was literally on my own, just figuring it out.
And you met a friend while you were out, right?
I did. I did. So my ex-husband, who is still a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine. So he had okay, so his sister and I grew up together.
Right.
And so we were friends in middle school. We used to cheer together in high school. We were just very, very close. So I ended up meeting her brother. during this time, I think I was like 17, maybe approaching 18 when I met him, and we just connected and we just vibed, and he had somewhere to stay. He was staying with his parents, and he literally left that out. So I was 18, because at 18 I inherited a small amount of money, and I used all of that to get a car. And so then I was able to start sleeping in my car, which was much more comfortable than sleeping on the bus. So I was grateful. And so he came and he started sleeping in the car with me, and we just try to figure it out. We got new jobs, we enrolled in school, we got our little security, our guard cards together. We were really trying our best to make it out of a difficult situation together. And that led to another life-changing situation, another gift from God. And so
Right.
this time I ended up getting pregnant, and I was faced with a decision. Like, I could either continue to barrel down the wrong path, I could continue to be unstable, bring my daughter into that situation, or I could say, I am going to change my life no matter what. And I cried, I prayed, and I enrolled in cosmetology school. And by the time my daughter, I took a brief break to have her during school, but by
Mhm.
the time she was 1 years old, I was fully licensed, working in a salon and making close to $80,000 my first year as a licensed hairstylist.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But when you found out you were pregnant, it was still the alcohol, the drugs, and you were still hanging out at that time as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it was crazy because I started noticing that didn't have the same desire to do. Drinking wasn't a huge thing for me then, right? But like ecstasy pills every single day. I mean, every single day. And even when I was working, like I would go to work, you wouldn't even know because I was so addicted to it. So I was functional. So I was ecstasy every day, smoking weed every day. And I started noticing I just didn't have a desire for it, which was very different because it had been years of me doing this. Thank God I found out I was pregnant really early on, like 6 weeks and 3 days.
Okay.
And I had already slowed down a lot. And from there, it was like, boom, no drinking, no smoking, no pills, no nothing, like completely sober. And don't get me wrong, like I give that short synopsis and I'm like, yeah, I was pregnant. And then, I was making $80,000. It was really, really hard. I had the emotions of being pregnant, still all the unresolved hurt and trauma and anger of the things I had been through, not just with my mom, but in life in general. And then I no longer had these coping mechanisms, these unhealthy coping mechanisms that I had been using the whole time. So there was so much growth and expansion that needed to happen during that time period in order for me to show up and be accountable for myself, for my daughter, and for her father.
And how was it received by her father? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh, he was so happy. He was so happy. That's why I say he's really like, we're great, great friends to this day. He just was so supportive. Even like now, like his girlfriend, her and I get along so well. She's calling me all the time, like, hey, sis, we just weren't meant to be together any longer. Our life paths were going in different directions, which is why
Mhm.
we eventually split up. But he was completely supportive the whole time.
Now that is some grown people stuff right there. Amen. 'Cause goodness gracious. Oh, wow, I love it. And so how was it, transitioning to working in the salon and now you have a newborn baby? Did you already have your own place at that time?
So I think right before I got pregnant, so after him and I had been together for a while, right? So right
Mhm.
before I got pregnant, we ended up moving in with his brother and sister,
Okay.
and so his brother and his sister-in-law, and we were all there. And then I ended up getting pregnant, and at the same time, his sister-in-law was pregnant. So it was a lot. Like they had two kids. Yep, they had two kids already. They were pregnant. Girl, we had dogs, cats. It was a lot going all on in one house. We were in the hood, gunshots. It was a lot.
Okay.
And so they were like, they decided to move out because it was just too much in one home.
Okay.
But we were really lucky because his grandmother actually owned properties and she let us rent, another blessing from God. We were able to rent out her house for $300 a month. Now, don't get me wrong, that house had mold on the ceilings, on the walls. I mean, literally the structural, it was like breaking down. There was like this hole so mice could get, it was a really difficult situation in terms of like the cleanliness of the home, right? So we put so much work into like scrubbing everything, cleaning everything, taking old stuff out. But $300 a month, that's what we could afford. My
Right.
daughter had own room coming into the house. I was able to start taking clients at home, doing hair at home, and it completely elevated our lives, right? Just having a place to call home.
Oh, I love it. I know that was a lot of hard work.
Girlfriend, it definitely was difficult, but it was such a blessing as well. And I just continued like that's the thing I talk to people about, even my child now. So that little girl is now 15 years old. And I say this is what I call an instant generation. Not
Mm,
everybody is like that. But a lot of people just want this fast track to success, and they're not willing to put in the work to take those steps and those
mhm,
stairs to work your way up. Did I want to live in a nice, huge home? Of course I did. In a
right.
nice area that's like super clean and like we own several properties now. Me and my husband own 4 homes. But I had to take what I could get. I went from sleeping on buses. I wasn't on the street, but sleeping on buses to sleeping in my car to now this home that really is not the best bet, but at least it's somewhere that's safe inside.
That's right.
And then when her father and I split, when I just say, God blesses you so, God, the universe, honey, if you put your faith if you think positive and take the action steps to follow your dreams, you will be amazed at the miracles that'll happen. And
That's
so
right.
when her dad and I were going through a divorce, yes, we're friends now. Was it extraordinarily painful? Of course it was. So we're going through this divorce, and I at the time worked in a salon, but also would do clients' hair at home. Reason
Mhm,
being, the salon took commission out, right? So I would do
right,
clients there, and then there were other clients I wanted my full pay.
right.
So I went to a client's house, to an apartment complex, and I had been doing her hair for a couple years. And she was like, "Girl, if you know anybody, we're renting out, I'm looking for people because I'm now the apartment manager." And I was like, "Well, since the last time I saw you, actually, me and my husband are getting divorced and I'm looking for a place." So, long story short, she ended up allowing me to move in. I didn't even have the full deposit because I wasn't expecting this to come up, right? Didn't
Right.
even have the full deposit. She allowed me to move in. Beautiful upstairs, downstairs, 2 bed, 2 bath, nice, I mean, safe enough area for Oakland, right? It's still stuff going on, but it's the safer part.
Okay.
Um, $1,000 a month. And so it was such a blessing. And then I'm gonna tell you one more story really quick before we move on. So I
Okay.
was telling my friend, one of my hairstylist friends, were riding in the car one day, and I was just saying how blessed I had been. I said, girl, everything from showing up at my friend's house for something random. And it just so happened he had a moving van there because he had to move. And we talked every day, but just hadn't had a chance to share that with each other. So
Mm,
him and my other friends came and helped me move all of my stuff free of charge, gave me some furniture. And I was telling her, I said, girl, I have been blessed with everything down to the paintings for the walls, right? The portraits. I said, the only thing now is I need some hooks. So my friend, we're driving a few more minutes. She's like, oh, pull over so I can smoke because I didn't let people smoke in my car. We pull over, and I kid you not, and I wrote about this in my book. And so I pull over and she hops out, and I see her looking on the ground and she's picking things up. And I was like, I know this girl is not. And she walks back to the car and she holds in her hand not only nails, but nails with a hook for
mm,
pictures and portraits.
okay.
I, I said, it's just amazing how God just blessed me every single step of the way,
All the way down to the nails and the hooks.
all the way.
Come on, because when it's
To
for
the tip
you,
of
it's
my
for
teeth.
you.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it doesn't mean it's gonna be easy, it doesn't mean it's gonna be perfect, it doesn't mean that you won't want more and wanna expand later, but when it's for you, and when you take that step, God and the universe will literally conspire to make your dreams come true.
That's right. That process. Oh, I love it.
Mhm.
Oh, I love it. So you went from working in a salon to then owning your own salon.
I did, and, I always say we don't make changes when we're comfortable.
Right.
So the first salon I left just because it was commission based, right? And when you're making a certain amount of money, there were days where I was paying them $500 per day. And it was a blessing to be there. I mean, they taught me so much, but at a certain point, it was time to move on, right? Know when you're supposed to be somewhere and also know when you're supposed to leave. So I move on. I'm in another salon and it was fine, but issues started happening. And I just was like, there's a reason that I'm uncomfortable here. So I said, the only way for me to control my environment, for me to make sure that I'm surrounded by people that are professional, that are friendly, that are kind, and that are just vibrating, that we're vibrating at the same level, right? It's not any
Right.
better or worse, just it connects.
Right.
And so I decided to open my own salon. And again, I went in there and I did not have enough to do it the way I wanted it first. I bought those little peel and stick floors, right? The
Yep,
little ones they have over here. And I said, okay, girlfriend, I can't afford to do the real floors, but I can do these.
that's
So I
right.
got boxes of them, and me and my best friend met up. And we literally peeled the stickers off the back and laid my floors on our hands and knees, laying all of that down. I couldn't afford brand new stations. I got them from somebody used. Again, how God shows up. A friend called me. She was like, oh, I know somebody. She was working at a storage center. This lady's
Mhm.
getting ready to lose her storage. I showed up with 15. I may get these numbers a little off, but I believe I showed up with $1,500. And she was like, she gave it to me for 12. Whatever it was I showed up with, I got all of the stations, everything that I needed to furnish my salon in that
Wow.
one setting. And did I love it? Was it perfect? No. So I went and I painted the stations myself to get the colors I wanted. And now I've remodeled the salon twice. I've been there 10 years. I've had my own salon. I'm currently booked into mid or in January. And I'm just so blessed.
Absolutely awesome. I'm talking about that's so dope. Yes, yes. So what type of hair do you have a main focus of hair that you do?
Girl,
Specialty?
I have so much energy, right? So
Oh,
for me, I've never been one, like they always say, niche to be rich, right? That's a phrase I always hear. But
mhm,
I can't just focus on one thing. Like I love
okay,
life and I love new experiences. And I feel like I spent so long in this victim mentality, pointing my finger at everybody else because it was easier than pointing the finger at me to take
mhm,
control and accountability of my life. That when I finally got out of that, I like obsessively take classes. I obsessively like learn new things, and
okay,
so in the hair industry, I focus on locks. I focus on locks, color, presses, and weaves. And the
okay.
main thing being, I love transformation. Like I do coaching and stuff too. So in and out of the salon, I love seeing somebody go from point A to point B and being excited with the results.
Well, let's talk about your coaching
Ap-
experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So during COVID, the salon was shut down.
Mhm,
And the salon, like I said, I'm booked out so far in advance. So I really, that was just my focus. I didn't have time. I would take classes. I did like Reiki and tarot and things like that. But
mhm,
really, my main focus was a salon. And then during COVID, we were shut down and I was left with 5 months of just time on my hands. And so I decided to pursue a dream that I'd had for a long time. And I wrote a book, which is this book right here. And I was terrified when I did it, which is good because anytime you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, anytime you're growing, you're going to be uncomfortable. So get used to it and embrace it.
that's right.
And yeah, and I wrote the book and it went on to win 3 awards. It led to me traveling and speaking all over the world. I did a TEDx talk a few weeks ago, which is in post production now. So I'm excited. I can't wait for it
Yeah,
to come out on YouTube.
congrats.
Um, yes, and then I started having people approach me and just asking me like, "How did you do this? How were you?" The 2 main things was how did you write a book? So I actually have a course now that I do that teaches people how to write a book. It's called the 90-day book writing challenge. Simple
Okay,
and straightforward. In 90 days, you're going to write your book. And also between that and just having these goals and like, how do I shorten the gap and the time from point A to point B? And it has been so incredibly fulfilling for me to help people step into the next version of themselves. And I would love to offer to your audience, I have this free Art of Manifestation course. It's a 3-part short video series that
okay,
essentially helps you to identify your goals. You learn the vision board method that really works because I have a tweak on it that makes it so much more effective and
okay.
helps you again. Where am I at? Where am I trying to go? And how do I shorten that gap?
Oh, I love it. So let's find out how do we go to Amazon for that as well? Do you have a website? Where do we go?
Yeah, I have a website. So my name is Natasha Ickes Saman, and so that if you look at Natasha Ickes, I'm probably the only one that's going to pop up. But if you're looking, so all that is on my website. If you click on there, you'll get the direct link, and you can get the free course. And even if you just put in Art of Manifestation, the mini course should pop right up. But I always say my last name is unique, so use it. When you go to my page, you'll see everything that I offer.
Yeah, and I always jack up the last name Saman.
Oh,
You didn't
don't
even
worry,
correct
girl.
me either.
look, everybody's been getting my before I was married to my husband now, and I've been with him 9 years. So the Saman usually is the easier one, but the Ickes, people have been getting that wrong my whole life. So I do not take it personal at all.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's got a ring to it, so that sat with me. So you're
Okay.
yes, yes. So your 90-day course, writing your book in 90 days, where can they find this as well? On your website?
That's all. Yep, that's also on my website. So eventually I'm going to automate it and just make it to where it's an online accessible course. For
Okay,
right now, I'm having so much fun with it. So I'm wanting to be hands-on. So I start a new cohort every 30 days. I don't take
okay,
more than 7 people per time because your success is so important to me. And I want enough feedback to know what's working. What do you want me to make better? And it's most important to me that your book is written in that 90 days and you can absolutely do it. And so, yeah, every 30 days, I'm taking 7 new people.
okay.
It's normally $500 through the end of the year. I'm doing it half off for 249, and then starting back next year, it'll raise back to the normal price of 497.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So let's talk about TED Talk. So you went in and did a TEDx talk. How was that experience for you?
You know, the biggest lesson I've got these last few years, which I mentioned earlier, is just get comfortable being uncomfortable. So, one of the first times, for one, it's difficult to get a TED talk, right? Or a TEDx talk. So, if anybody who's interested, probably the easiest way to do it would be to go to TED.com and look and see upcoming conferences, and then you can go directly to their website and apply. The
Okay.
average number of applications it takes to be accepted to give a TEDx talk is 86, I think. I
Mm,
applied to 55 of them.
okay.
And the first conference I applied to ended up getting canceled. And then the second conference I applied to, I was so excited. I got, well, not the second, but the second one I got accepted to. So excited, got accepted. And our first time I'm sitting there, and literally to the left of me, there's a woman who is a professor, either at Yale or Harvard, one of the two. I can't remember which one.
Mm.
To the right of me is an actual MD, an actual doctor. And here I am with my cosmetology license, honey, and a best-selling book. And I'm like, I'm feeling
Dang.
small, right? I'm feeling small. But
What?
that's okay because it gives us space to grow. And it's okay to be a
Right.
little intimidated and to then remind ourselves that we are on our own journey, on our own path, and it's not a comparison to anybody but us.
Okay.
And so these people became my soul family and we're so close. And it's just been an amazing journey. So, fast forward, it takes about a year of preparation. It's so
Mhm.
incredibly difficult. And you have to memorize your full 18 minutes, your full speech, and then even post production is a while, right? Just getting approved to make it onto the TED site. So, we just did our conference about 3 weeks ago. And so far, 4 of the people made it onto TED, and 5 of us are still under review. So
Okay.
it is terrifying. It's scary because you don't know what the answer is going to be. But I also just have to have faith that God didn't take me this far to turn me away. Like there's a reason I spent a year preparing this talk. It's meant to be heard. It won't touch everybody, but it'll touch somebody. And I
Right.
have faith that it'll be approved and it'll make it on. Fingers
Most
crossed.
definitely. Most definitely. Most definitely. It's gonna happen because it's yours. It's your time.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And so I just want to tap into you also do a lot of things for the community as well. With going out and taking care of the homeless, giving haircuts and things of that nature as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, when they say you're on a plane and you put your air on first, right? You hop out, something happens drastic and you put your own life vest on first. So I had to get myself to a space where I was okay first, right? And that took a while. And then after I did that, I believe a year after, within the first year of me opening my salon, a woman reached out to me. And I had actually been toying with this idea for a while. I had reached out to my church about it and had reached out to other hairstylists, but it finally came to fruition a year after I opened my salon. We started going out into the community and providing free haircuts and styles for homeless men, women, and children. So sometimes we would do boys and girls clubs. Sometimes we would do like family homeless shelters. And sometimes we would literally go outside with a generator and clippers and just into homeless encampments and just cut hair. And so that's something that we've been doing now for the last 9 years. It slowed down during COVID, but it just started picking back up. So I did one recently, and literally just yesterday, I was in talks with some barbers, and we're getting ready to do another one for the holidays. We're going to be doing it next month. So yeah, so that's something that's been super fulfilling. I have my children come and they sign people up, and they take pictures if people are comfortable, or pass out snacks or sanitation bags, just so that they can be around it and be aware of how blessed they are and how important it is to give back to somebody else.
That's right. I love it. Gratitude. Definitely gratitude for you. That
Thank
is
you.
absolutely amazing. I do have a question about just conversations with your kids and your
Yeah.
experiences in life. So how has that been just talking to them when it comes to things like the depression, anxiety, and with having that access to social media with the things that they're able to see there?
So my son is 7, my daughter is 15, and my stepdaughter is 16. So the girls, I'm able to converse with them a lot more.
Mhm.
They still don't know everything. There's a lot of things I haven't shared. But it's not a secret. It's just some things I'm like, I don't know how in depth I want to go.
Right.
But just for them, a thing I've always stressed is emotional maturity and intelligence, right? Not
Right.
expecting more of them than they're able to give in the moment, right? You respond from where you're at. But always just, I know for me, the turnaround was understanding that life wasn't happening to me because I felt like a victim. I felt like, I had given my control away. So constantly reminding them that in every single moment, you have a choice. You can't control everything that happens. You can't even control your own emotions all of the time, right? Those waves will come and go, but you can choose how you choose to respond to them. So if you're upset and you're hurt, take a day, take a week and cry and sit in your room and listen to music and whatever. But then decide that, okay, I'm putting a time limit on this and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something that's going to make me feel better.
Mhm.
And so that's what I try. And even my son, only being 7, yesterday and the day before, he cried when I took him to his sports. And he never does that. He's just
Mm.
crying and crying. He didn't want to go into basketball, didn't want to go into soccer. And I think it's just because he's tired because he does so much. But yesterday I said, you know what? We're going to have a self care day. So we literally were at the soccer field. We got back in the car. We left. We came home. We had ice cream. We watched movies. We read a book. We went to bed early so he could be rested. So I try and teach them to take care of themselves, but
Mm.
also to take accountability for their actions and the way that they're moving in the world.
Gratitude. That's awesome. I remember when I was single, I would always take one day and I'll feel sorry for myself just one day,
Yeah.
and I would get to it the next day. But I would always have to take my one day.
Yes.
Yeah. I
You
forgot
have
about
to
that
because
a
if not,
lot when I got
it's
married, but
important. Because you guys have been married a while now, right?
yeah, I've been married 14 years, been together 15 years. And
Wow.
so instantly, I started off with 3 children of my own, and instantly,
Yeah.
I had 4 more children. And,
Yeah.
in the household, we went from having 4 children in the household to eventually we had 6 kids in the house at all times. So
Wow.
it was, my life was just set up a lot different, so I wasn't taking those one day to feel sorry for myself. It was just, "All right, I have to keep moving," which in turn took a toll on me, in the long run, but,
Yeah.
eventually I got it together though. I got it
I'm
together.
glad you said
Yes,
that. I mean, it's so important to bring up self-care, right?
mhm,
Like you're taking care of all those children and your husband, and of course he's taking care of you too, but it's a lot being in a relationship. It's a lot of hard work and compromise and communication. And so it's so important for us to learn at every age, especially in this Western society, that it's okay to take care of you.
that's right, it is okay. Yes, it is. Well, I definitely appreciate you and your journey and gratitude for you coming on to speak with us today about your journey. And I want to say, is there anything that you would like to leave out there for the youth? Well, I kind of feel like you wrapped it up all about what you've done for your children and that message that you give, that you've given them. If you have anything
Absolutely.
else that you want to share, or any upcoming projects as well.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing, the book writing challenge is going on every 30 days. So you guys are more than welcome. I'm always doing something. So connect with me on Facebook, Instagram. I love having conversations, seeing what you're up to, and just, connecting. I'll be in Italy in a few weeks speaking out there. So I'm always doing something new. But
Awesome.
the main thing I would say to anybody of any age is to just keep pushing, like figure out your passion, right? Because that's the thing that'll keep you motivated and have that fire.
Right.
And then figure out how your passion can be used to make the world a better place. That's your purpose. So you combine your passion, your purpose, and then that just internal fire and accountability. And I promise you, you will learn to fall in love with life.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Definitely. And also go out and get that free course as well. Because
Yeah.
building it, everybody needs a vision board.
Yes.
Everybody. You gotta
Yep.
see it. You gotta write it down. You gotta feel it. Law of
Put
attraction
it
is
out there so the universe can conspire to make it happen.
that's right. Law of attraction is a real thing. Definitely. So I appreciate you for coming on today and chatting with us. Again, this is Natasha Janelle. I am your host, and I have been talking to Mrs. Natasha Ickes Saman.
Hey, got it right.
Want to say gratitude to you, and we appreciate you and your journey and gratitude for sharing with us. Again, this is Studio 125 Multimedia Complex. Peace.